Hello and welcome to what is technically episode 2, but our first real episode of starting to look at how we can use these tools to try and help us streamline the work that we do on a daily basis, try and save some time, remove some of that stress, and also to improve the quality of what it is that we do. So in this first episode, we're going to be looking at how to get AI models to help us plan out our year, to help give a little bit of context to how to approach things like differentiated learning tasks, how to fully support our students, and we're going to just dive straight in. And for this, we're going to be using just ChatGPT. Okay, so in the introduction, I kind of briefly gave this a task of planning out a single session. Now, we're going to take this a little bit further today, and we're going to start giving it some context. Now, the most important thing when you are using any of these tools is to give it the context of what it's aiming for, why it's aiming for it, and how you would like it to approach it. The reason for this is that otherwise what it's going to do is basically make its best guess. And that is all that these systems are at the moment. There is no general intelligence to these. They are just making guesses as to what it is that you need them to say next. For that reason, it is always important to make sure you actually check what these tools are giving you. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we start talking about using them for assessment purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this to plan out a project. And we're going to do this across one term. I always find it's best to do these things in chunks, otherwise it can leave things out, get a little bit confused. So we're going to work within the first half term of something. Now, this first half term, we're going to aim for a level 1 photography class. This is going to be a class with learners with various needs. And also, we're going to talk about how we have quite limited equipment, and we're going to see what it can come up with as we go ahead. So what we're going to do is start by giving it the context. So I'm going to say to it, I am teaching a level 1 photography class with various learning requirements. These are 16 to 18-year-old students. Okay. I would like you to help me plan the first half term of projects. The first half term is, and this is the important part, so it knows kind of how long it is that you want it to plan the sessions for. Now, obviously, this helps if you have your timetable, if you know how long you have them, what days you have them, etc. But for this, we're going to assume that we have them for 6 hours on a Monday, 3 hours on a Tuesday, and 4 hours on a Wednesday. Okay. We're also going to assume that this is a 6-week half term. Okay. So the first half term is 6 weeks in length. They have, 6 hours on a Monday. They have 3 hours on a Tuesday. They have 4 hours on a Wednesday. Now, really, you could, at this point, kind of let it crack on. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask it specifically to include certain topics within this. And this isn't even taking into consideration how it is that you could get it to actually read through the specification of the course, which we're going to have a little go at after we've done this. But for now, let's just say the project needs to include research into existing photographers, reflection on how they feel about the work by that photographer, experimentation with using DSLRs, which is digital cameras, creating a portfolio of nature photography, and also creating a reflective diary, which should be completed weekly. Okay, and let's see what it comes up with. Now, here's the point where you kind of go and quickly make yourself a coffee and see what it comes up with. It's pretty quick though, so as you can see. Project overview. It's given us a title, Exploring Nature Through the Lens. The aims are to introduce students to DSLR cameras and basic manual controls, develop research and reflection skills, build a nature photography portfolio, encourage personal expression. Okay, so it's planned it out as per each of the days and what it is that we'll be doing. Okay. Now, one of the things is, for example, I know that level 1 students are going to struggle to create a portfolio within just 1 week. It's quite a lot to ask of them. So what we can do is we can tell it that we need it to rethink that. So we can say, the issue is that I feel level 1 students may struggle to develop a portfolio in just 1 week. Now, this is the importance of giving it context. If you just tell it that you need more weeks for the portfolio, you do run the risk of it just starting to add in extra weeks by itself. As I said, it's just guessing what it is that it needs to do. So by giving it some context, what you're going to do is give it a bit more understanding of the problem, and then you can kind of get it to give you a better solution. So we can say, can you incorporate the final portfolio across a few weeks instead? And then it should say, that's a great point. And here's a revised plan. And then we can do that as much as we need. And again, this is the importance of making sure that you actually read it. You can't trust it entirely. Now, in all honesty, this has now kind of done my scheme of work for the next 6 weeks at least. Okay. Now, one of the things that we didn't do was kind of give it any specifics about the learning needs that we have within this class. Okay. You can just see, by the way, that it's kind of got our portfolio draft, portfolio refinements, consolidating portfolios. There we go. Lovely stuff. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, that we have some different needs within our class. Okay. So, I always like to thank the robots, but we need to give it some more context. So, we're going to say, can you revise these plans to cater for the following 2 students? Student A is visually impaired and requires some help with writing and using the equipment. They typically have a learning support with them on a one-to-one basis. Student B is dyslexic and struggles with written tasks. As well as this, they suffer from ADHD and need prompting to remain on task. Okay, and let's see how it is going to go for that. Now, this brings me to a very important point. So one of the things that you need to make sure you are not doing with these models is uploading any sensitive information. Now, it is technically private, but the thing you have to remember is that anything that you give these models is helping to train the model. So there has been a spate, for example, of people uploading photos of their students and getting it to do Disney versions of their class photos. Now, the issue is that photo is then added into the library of images for the actual learning model, and thus what it does is keep that, doesn't necessarily share it, but it is within their system. So you can imagine if we're uploading sensitive information, then what we need to consider is that isn't technically following any of the guidelines that we have for ensuring that we aren't sharing sensitive information. So let's go back to our model and see what it's come up with. Okay, So what it's done is it's kind of given us a bit of context about the students. So if you need to, you can just, revise this if it's forgotten anything. Sometimes it does. And what it's got here is it's got some general inclusive strategies. And what it's done is it's given us a weekly breakdown for how it is that we can actually cater for those individual students. Okay. So that's pretty good. Now, this is only looking at one of the potential ways that we can use this with us giving it all the information. What if we want to be lazier? So one of the things that I am a real advocate for is don't work hard, work smart. And that isn't because I'm lazy, which I am, but also because what we want to do is get this to streamline all of our tasks. So for example, if I have specific units that I need to target or a whole new spec that I need to understand, then I could spend, and have spent before, hours, days, weeks trawling through that to ensure that I am hitting all of the necessary criteria. So let's see how we can get this to do some of that for us. Okay, so now we're going to see if we can get this to find some information out for us. So I'm going to say I am teaching the BTEC Level 1 Digital Media course. Can you please find out what units need to be targeted within this? And one of the things it is then going to do is search the web, and it's going to find a range of sources that's going to explain what it is that they need to do. And what's quite nice is that it gives you some context as well as the sources as to where it got that information from. Okay? All right. So it's come up with some of the optional units here, and it's also created us a checklist, which is great. Now, if you don't entirely trust this, and I would say that there are a lot more optional units than this, so it hasn't got them all, you can actually upload the specification itself. So let's do that. So if I open up a new tab, and I'm going to search for BTEC Level 1 Digital Media, and I'm going to find the specification, and here it is. I'm going to download this, and here it is, and here are the units. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and that's just going to go into my downloads for now. And I'm going to go back to my GPT, and I'm going to say, here is the specification. Okay. Now, it's obviously already listed this. Don't be afraid that you're going to offend it by saying to it, here it is, get it to review it again. Okay, so here is the course specification. Can you double check and outline all of the required units, including all optional units? Okay. Now, what it's going to do is read that actual file, and it's going to give you all of the key information that you have asked for. Now, as I said, it's sometimes best to do this in chunks. I've not asked it to tell me what each of the units require, but it's going to kind of give me a breakdown of them. Sometimes it'll do it off its own back. Okay. So it's going to ask me some other questions. Now, we're doing the diploma for this example. So I'm going to say we are doing the diploma program. Can you help me plan out a year's worth of projects that will target all of the required units and the necessary amount of optional units for students to gain the qualification? Now, obviously, this is important because we've given it the context. We've said diploma, so it knows how many it is going to need. So it's said here 4 core units, 6 of the optional units, or sector units as it calls it now. So it's gone through this, must do all of these, choose 6 of these, and now it's going to go through this here. So Project 1, a media starter pack. Project 2, storytelling in media. So this is across 2 half terms. Spring term, January to April. Project 4. Project 3, we've got promotional media campaign, research and progression focus. Project 5, short film and animation showcase. Project 6, audio and editing final showcase. And integration of core units. We've got advantages to this plan. We can get it to create a detailed scheme of work, etc., etc. Okay. Now, it says here, I've hit the free plan limit. You don't really need to worry about that because GPT 4.0 is good, but this is going to continue to be absolutely fine for what we need. Sometimes it'll kind of not let you continue unless you open up a new chat, but there's a really simple way around that. So we can just copy this up to what it is that you need, and let's open up a new chat. Okay. So then we can just simply say, can you create lesson plans for the first term of this year plan? And then we're just going to paste it in. Now, the different models of GPT is a good chance for me to kind of talk about that. There are lots of different models, and essentially they are just smarter versions of the previous. To get the smartest version, you have to pay. You get some free limits for it, and you can do some fun things with the paid version, like getting it to generate images and what have you, but we don't need it for this. We'll talk about that another time. There are other websites that do just as good a job for free as well. Okay, so we've got our weekly breakdown, we've got some tasks, and what we could then do is we could get it to give us some more specifics. And as I said before, we can get it to talk about our differentiated learners. We could get it to be specific about certain tasks that you want it to do. I've just copied that first week, but I don't even need to. I can just say, can you give me a detailed hourly breakdown for the first week? Now, here's the thing. Sometimes it'll remember what it is that the hours are. Sometimes it won't. I find that it's best to just beat it to the punch and get it to actually give it the information that it needs to follow. So we're going to go again is Monday, 6 hours. Tuesday, 3 hours. Wednesday, 4 hours. And here we go. And it's going to give us an entire breakdown. Obviously, it's assumed what our timetable is here, but we can tell it what our exact sessions are if you need to. And there we go. It's now come up with our entire plan. So the next step of this is how we can actually start using different tools to create the resources for lessons, which we'll talk about in the next episode. So those are just a few ways you can get this to help you plan out your sessions. One of the really useful tools, and one of the things I've always struggled with, is including things like the differentiation aspect of it. In future episodes and in the next part where we start doing our lesson planning and resources, we can also start to include things like embedding maths, embedding English, British values, etc., etc. So we'll do that in the next episode. For now, one of the things that you can start to do as a little experiment for this is upload some of your existing lesson plans that you've made and get it to see if it can adapt those to any new units, any new specs. If you want it to just refresh the plans that you've already got, if you want it to update it based on new timetables, if you need to split it amongst more members of staff, if you need to add in more of your own specific specialisms within there, it can do it all. It is just about giving it the context and asking it to do so in a way that will fit what your requirements are. So I'll see you in the next episode where we start looking at some other tools for how to create some resources.